September 7, 2012. Chapel Hill, North Carolina. A college town known for its charm, its safety, its promise. But on this morning, a silence would be broken, a silence that still echoes more than a decade later. Inside this room lay 20-year-old Faith Hedgepeth. A brilliant student. A proud member of the Lumbee Native American community. A daughter, a sister, a friend. And now, a victim of one of the most haunting murders in modern North Carolina history. The scene stunned even seasoned investigators. A young woman brutally murdered in her own apartment. But what was left behind was even stranger, a cryptic handwritten note, and a voicemail so eerie, so confusing, that for years it fueled endless theories. Was this the voice of Faith? A desperate final message? Or something else entirely? For nearly a decade, the case remained unsolved. The question loomed over family, friends, investigators, and the entire community: who killed Faith Hedgepeth? And why? In this documentary, we'll take you through every twist, every misstep, and every breakthrough in the investigation. By the end, you'll understand not only the tragic story of Faith's life and death, but also the failures, the secrets, and the scientific advances that finally brought answers to a grieving family. If you love deep true crime storytelling, you're in the right place. This is Cuffed and Curious. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with others who seek the truth, because together, we're going to uncover what really happened to Faith Hedgepeth. Before she became the face of a tragedy, before her name echoed through headlines, Faith Danielle Hedgepeth was simply Faith, a daughter, a sister, a friend, and a young woman with big dreams. Faith was born on September 26, 1992, in Warrenton, North Carolina. She grew up as part of the Lumbee tribe, the largest Native American tribe east of the Mississippi. Her heritage was a deep source of pride, and she carried that identity with her wherever she went.
Faith loved her people. She wanted the world to know that Native women could succeed, that they could stand tall. She was going to prove that.
From a young age, Faith excelled in school. Teachers described her as brilliant, hardworking, with a spark that set her apart. But beyond her grades, she was known for her smile, the kind that lit up a room. Faith's dream was to become a pediatrician. She had a calling to help others, especially children. With the support of her family and her community, she earned a scholarship to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. A chance to make that dream real.
When Faith got accepted to UNC, she cried tears of joy. She said, "This is it. This is how I change my life, and maybe change the world." At UNC, Faith wasn't just another student. She was vibrant, social, full of energy. She loved music, dancing, and nights out with friends. She was the kind of person who seemed to be everywhere at once. In class, at events, helping others. People gravitated toward her.
Faith was like sunshine. She had this way of making you feel safe, like everything was going to be okay. She just had that energy.
But like many young adults, Faith faced her struggles too. Balancing studies, relationships, and finances wasn't easy. And sometimes, her kindness made her vulnerable. Too trusting, too forgiving. Chapel Hill. A college town with charm, history, and the illusion of safety. By day, it's a hub of academics and Southern hospitality. By night, it's alive with music, laughter, and the restless energy of students. But beneath the surface, like every town, Chapel Hill had its shadows. Crime, though rare, was not absent. And on one September night, the darkness would find Faith. On the evening of September 6, 2012, Faith was full of life. She and her close friend and roommate, Karina Rosario, decided to go out to a popular nightclub. It was just another Thursday night in Chapel Hill. Or so it seemed. what happened that night, and in the hours that followed, would unravel into one of the most disturbing mysteries Chapel Hill has ever seen. By the morning, Faith would be gone, and the search for her killer would begin. Thursday, September 6, 2012. For most students in Chapel Hill, it was just another night. Classes were over, the weekend was close, and the city's nightlife was alive. For Faith Hedgepeth and her roommate, Karina Rosario, it was a chance to escape the stress of school and enjoy the night. Faith and Karina had a close, though sometimes complicated, friendship. That night, they planned to visit a local nightclub called The Thrill, a popular spot among UNC students. They arrived around midnight, ready to dance and forget the world for a few hours. Witnesses later recalled seeing Faith smiling, dancing, full of energy. Nothing seemed unusual. But beneath the music and laughter, small details were already setting the stage for tragedy. At 2:06 a.m., security footage captured Faith and Karina leaving the club. The two headed back to their apartment, unaware that this would be Faith's final walk home. Back at the apartment, things took an unexpected turn. Karina told police that she wasn't feeling well. Possibly from alcohol, possibly from something deeper. Around 3 a.m., she left the apartment with a friend, leaving Faith alone inside. For reasons still unclear, Faith, just 19 years old, was now alone in the apartment. It was a decision that would prove fatal. Sometime between 2:30 and 4 a.m., someone entered the apartment. Whether it was someone Faith knew, or a stranger, has remained one of the most chilling questions of this case. Sometime between 2:30 and 4 a.m., someone entered the apartment. Whether it was someone Faith knew, or a stranger, has remained one of the most chilling questions of this case. Around this same window, something unusual appeared on Faith's cell phone records. A voicemail. Investigators believe it was accidentally created, what's known as a pocket dial. The recording captured muffled voices, laughter, and then what sounded like an argument. Some even claim you can hear Faith crying out for help. Was this Faith's final cry? Or was it an unrelated recording, misinterpreted by desperate ears? To this day, the voicemail remains one of the most chilling and debated pieces of evidence in the case. By the morning of September 7th, Karina returned to the apartment, accompanied by a male friend. What they found inside was every roommate's worst nightmare. Faith Hedgepeth was found brutally murdered in her bedroom. The scene was violent, shocking, and deeply personal. Investigators would later describe it as one of the most disturbing they had ever encountered. A cryptic note, a mysterious voicemail, and a window of time where a killer walked freely through her home. Who entered Faith's apartment that night? And what could drive someone to such brutal violence? When police arrived at the Hawthorne at the View Apartments on the morning of September 7, 2012, the scene was already chaotic. Faith's roommate Karina Rosario, shaken and terrified, stood outside. The male friend who had entered with her was on the phone with 911, struggling to describe what he had seen. Inside the apartment, officers encountered a scene so violent, so shocking, that many struggled to process what they were seeing. But in the critical first hours, mistakes were made. The apartment was not fully sealed off. Friends, neighbors, even curious bystanders came dangerously close to contaminating evidence. Items were moved. Footprints went unrecorded. It was the kind of mishandling that can haunt an investigation for years.
In cases like this, the first 24 hours are everything. If evidence is compromised, if the scene is disturbed, it can mean the difference between a conviction and a lifetime of unanswered questions.
The autopsy confirmed what investigators already feared. Faith Hedgepeth's death was not only brutal, it was deeply personal. She had been beaten to death, her injuries catastrophic. There were signs of sexual assault. The violence spoke of rage, not a random attack, but something far darker. Her family, devastated, clung to the hope that evidence collected from her body would lead to answers. But perhaps the strangest detail at the crime scene was a handwritten note, scrawled in ink on a fast food takeout bag. It read, "I'm not stupid. Jealous. Was it written by the killer? A taunt? A message to Faith? Or was it planted to throw off investigators? Theories swirled, but answers remained elusive. From the crime scene, investigators collected what they believed would be their strongest lead: DNA. A clear male DNA profile was found on Faith's body and other evidence. This was the killer's signature, undeniable proof of his presence. But there was one problem: no match. The DNA was run through national databases. Every known offender, every suspect questioned. Nothing. The killer had never been caught before, never registered, never identified. He was a ghost in the system. Police began to cast a wide net. Faith's ex-boyfriends. Men who had shown interest in her. Friends from the club. Even her own roommate Karina Rosario came under scrutiny. Each was questioned, tested, and scrutinized. But each time DNA cleared them. Whoever killed Faith was not among them. As days turned to weeks and weeks to months, the community grew restless. Faith's family pleaded for answers. The Lumbee tribe, her people, demanded justice. Every year, vigils were held. Every year, the same question echoed: why was this case still unsolved?
We knew they had DNA. We thought that meant answers. But years passed, and nothing happened. It was like shouting into the wind. Despite DNA, despite the note, despite the chilling voicemail, no arrests were made. Leads went cold. Suspects were cleared. And the killer walked free. For years, the case of Faith Hedgepeth would remain a haunting mystery, one the public could not stop trying to solve. As months stretched into years with no arrest, Faith Hedgepeth's story spread beyond Chapel Hill. National crime shows, investigative podcasts, and newspapers covered her case. Audiences across the country were stunned. How could a young woman be murdered so violently, with DNA evidence in hand, yet no answers? With official updates scarce, internet sleuths began to piece together the puzzle themselves. They pored over every scrap of information: the 911 call, the timeline, the mysterious note, and especially the voicemail, that chilling, distorted recording said to capture Faith's final moments. Some claimed they could hear screams. Others swore they recognized voices: a man, a woman, a confrontation. Was it Faith? Was it someone else? The recording became a breeding ground for speculation, each theory more unsettling than the last. For the Lumbee tribe, and for Native communities across the country, Faith's murder was more than a tragedy. It was a painful reminder of how violence against Native women is often ignored, under-investigated, and left to grow cold.
Faith represented hope. Her death, and the lack of answers, it felt like a wound not just to her family, but to all of us. Each year, friends and family gathered at vigils, holding candles, praying, demanding justice. Each year, the same silence followed. As time passed, theories began to take shape. Some pointed to those closest to Faith, raising painful, even unfair questions. Many online speculators focused on Karina, Faith's roommate and closest friend. Why had she left the apartment that night? Why had she returned in the morning with a male friend, instead of calling police herself? Was she protecting someone? Did she know more than she revealed?
It just didn't add up. People wondered if she was scared, or if she was hiding something bigger. Police did test her DNA. It was not a match, but suspicion lingered in the public eye. Others believed the crime was fueled by jealousy. Faith was popular, ambitious, and admired. Was she caught in a love triangle? Was the note a confession of rage? The note seemed personal, written in anger. But who wrote it? And why leave it behind? Perhaps the most debated theory centered on the voicemail. Some claimed it was Faith herself, screaming as she was attacked. Others argued it was a recording from earlier in the night, distorted and misheard. The lack of clarity kept the theory alive, and the horror fresh.
It became this Rorschach test of fear. People heard what they feared most: betrayal, violence, Faith's final words. While strangers on the internet dissected every detail, Faith's family lived with the unbearable silence of her absence. Each birthday, each holiday, was another reminder of what was stolen. And each year that passed without justice deepened the wound.
I just wanted to know who and why. That's all I wanted. Why my baby?
Theories swirled. Suspects were named and dismissed. The internet buzzed with speculation. But the truth remained locked away. The DNA, the note, the voicemail. All pieces of a puzzle no one could solve. And then, after nearly a decade of silence, the case that haunted Chapel Hill would finally crack open. For nearly 4 years, Faith Hedgepeth's case sat in limbo. Evidence existed, DNA, the note, the voicemail, but no match, no suspect, no answers. Her family endured vigil after vigil, praying for justice that never seemed to come. By 2016, frustration reached its peak. But then a shift. A new wave of technology was about to breathe life into a case many feared was lost. In 2016, the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation partnered with advanced labs to retest Faith's DNA evidence. The science had advanced. Now, instead of waiting for a random database hit, investigators could analyze DNA in ways previously impossible. Enter genetic genealogy, the same technique that helped identify the Golden State Killer. By comparing unknown DNA to open-source genealogy databases, investigators could search for relatives of the killer, and slowly, painstakingly build a family tree that led to him. Years of dead ends gave way to a stunning revelation. In 2021, investigators announced a match. A man whose DNA aligned perfectly with the evidence left on Faith Hedgepeth. The name shocked everyone. Miguel Enrique Salguero Olivares. On September 16, 2021, nearly 9 years after Faith's death, Miguel, a 28-year-old living in Durham, North Carolina, was arrested and charged with her murder. His DNA was a perfect match to evidence collected at the crime scene. For the first time in nearly a decade, the Hedgepeth family heard the words they had been waiting for. There was a suspect. Someone would finally stand trial. But with relief came confusion. Who was Miguel? He had no direct connection to Faith. He was not a student at UNC. He wasn't part of her close circle. So how did he end up in her apartment that night? We'd never even heard of him. People were like, wait, who? How could he be tied to Faith? Miguel was born in Mexico and came to the US as a child. By 2012, he was living in the Chapel Hill area, working odd jobs. Those who knew him described him as quiet, sometimes troubled. But his past also included brushes with the law, driving offenses, minor charges. Nothing that predicted the level of violence seen in Faith's case. Investigators revealed no clear motive. Was it a chance encounter? A targeted attack? Or something even darker? A hidden connection no one had yet uncovered? If Miguel was the killer, did he also write the note? Did he leave the voicemail? Or was someone else present that night? Some investigators quietly wonder if Miguel acted alone. And if he didn't act alone, who else was in that apartment? After 9 years of silence, the arrest of Miguel Enrique Salguero Olivares brought answers, but not closure. Instead, it raised new questions. How did he know Faith? Why was she targeted? And most unsettling of all, is the full truth still hidden? For Faith Hedgepeth's family, the years have been marked by grief, resilience, and questions that still sting. Her father, Roland, once said, "Every day I wake up, and it's the first thing on my mind. Why Faith? Why her?"
She wanted to be a doctor. She wanted to help people. And someone took all of that away.
Chapel Hill, a place built on the promise of safety, learning, and futures, was shaken. Faith's murder left parents asking, how safe are our campuses really? Her story became a haunting reminder that violence can strike anywhere, even in the heart of a college town. Faith's death also cast light on a deeper issue: the overlooked violence against Native American women. The Lumbee tribe, proud and resilient, rallied behind her family. But Faith's case is not alone. Across America, Indigenous women face higher rates of disappearance, assault, and homicide, too often with little national attention. Faith's story became more than a local tragedy. It became a symbol, a rallying cry, for communities demanding justice and visibility. This case also revealed the fragile line between justice delayed and justice denied. For nearly a decade, evidence sat waiting. The public grew restless. Faith's family was left in the dark. Critics pointed to missteps, to silence, to a lack of transparency. But in the end, science gave Faith a voice. DNA genealogy, once a dream, now a reality, cracked her case wide open. It proved that even when years pass, answers can still be found. Yet DNA is not a story. It is a thread. It tells us who, but rarely why. For Faith, we may know who left their DNA in her apartment. But the mystery of motive, of what really happened between 2:30 and 4 a.m. that night, remains locked in silence. It is easy, in the shadow of tragedy, to remember only the crime. But Faith Hedgepeth was so much more. A brilliant student. A proud Lumbee woman. A daughter who called her mother every day. A friend whose laughter filled every room. She dreamed of becoming a pediatrician, of healing children, of giving back.
She was the kind of person who made you believe you could do anything. That's how I want people to remember her. Faith's story is one of loss, but also of legacy. Her death exposed flaws in investigations, highlighted the silence around violence against Native women, and proved the growing power of forensic science. But above all, it left us with a reminder: justice is not just about catching a killer. It's about remembering the life stolen, and fighting to make sure no other family waits so long for answers. Faith Hedgepeth was more than a victim. She was a voice. And through her story, that voice still echoes. If you believe her story matters, share it. Keep talking about it. And join us here at Cuffed and Curious, where we bring you the cases that demand answers. Subscribe, like, and spread the word, because justice is a journey we take together. We've followed Faith Hedgepeth's story from her bright beginnings, through the tragedy of her final night, the years of frustration, and the shocking arrest nearly a decade later. But even now, one question lingers: was justice truly served? DNA points to Miguel Enrique Salguero Olivares. Yet the mysteries remain. Why was Faith targeted? Did Miguel act alone? And what really happened inside that apartment between 2:30 and 4 a.m.? For her family, justice is more than a conviction. It's answers. It's truth. It's making sure Faith's name is remembered not just for her death, but for the life she lived. If you found this story gripping, subscribe to Cuffed and Curious for more deep dives into true crime mysteries. Like this video, share it with others who seek the truth, and join the conversation in the comments. We want to hear your theories. Was this case truly solved, or are there still pieces missing? Thank you for watching, and for remembering Faith.